So we've got the installations done. We've got a lot of tools at our fingertips. We really probably should make like save off the project like right now in its current state, because we're going to kind of be using that as the starting point for a lot of different things. But to be honest, if you get really good at going through those boilerplate steps, there's no harm in that either. So we'll just kind of make them each time. So what we want to do this time is we want to just kind of do some of the initial HTML setup. So right now I'm on localhost, so this is what we've got so far. But what I want to do is I want to do some of the initial like HTML things. Like, I mean, you can see how this has like a big welcome thing going on with it, and then there's a button on here. So we're going to work on that type of thing. We're not going to do the authentication yet, so really quick I'm going to click on this, but you're going to ignore that UI. The other thing we want to do is we kind of want to have this toolbar set up here, and then this toolbar has a sign out button on it, and so we want to do that toolbar and sign out. We won't do the HTML in here just yet. We'll eventually get there. But this initial thing, we want to focus on the toolbar, the content area, and then this is the sign-in route is where it's at. I didn't really mention that, but there's a sign-in route, and then there's a main route. You can't navigate between the two. It just automatically navigates you. So when you sign in, it takes you over to the main route, and then when you're not signed in, it takes you over to the sign-in route. So that's kind of the two routes. So I suppose the first thing we ought to do is we ought to make sure we're in a clean get state. Looks like we are. And then we ought to go ahead and make some routes. So we're going to have two routes. So we're going to have to do an ngg, this up to the top again, component for the sign-in route. You could say sign in with a capital I or a lowercase I, doesn't really matter. And then we also need a main. So we're going to just say ngg component main. Now both of these components are going to actually be routes as well. So to follow the naming convention, what I'm going to do is I'm going to name their folders with a plus symbol. So I'm going to say rename to main, and rename this one to plus sign in. By changing the folder, we've messed up the import that's in here, and so it needs a plus symbol on sign in and a plus symbol on main there as well. Don't know if I like this new thing over here yet. Maybe I'll hide that for the video at least, or most of it. Great, so we've got the app module set up, but we haven't done anything in the app routing module yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of delete what they've got there. I think that there was a shortcut for eager loading, that'll kind of do what I want. And so what we want here is we want, if they come to nothing, like the naked domain, then I want them to get the main component. Not helping me type much today. Used to work better. Hate it when tools get worse instead of better. And then if they come to the sign in route, they get the sign in component, which should auto import to there. You could also, if you remember how, you could put on a star and do a redirect to just slash, which would be the naked domain. I'm going to not do that this time because, for one, it doesn't really matter. It should never happen. And two, I kind of like when my app crashes when I mess something up. So I'm going to choose not to do it. But that's very much something you could add. So now I guess I could also delete my spec file. So I got a spec file right there that I need to delete. And then I've also got a spec file right here that I need to delete. Barely can see the letter S there, so I know that's the one I need to delete. And I can check to make sure my app still works. So I come over to this guy. That is, of course, the finished solution, not localhost. And I can see that it says main works. So I bring that over a little. And if I go to /sign in, it says that sign in works. There's no way to navigate there other than just manually changing the URL. But I can see they both work. And so what I kind of like to do is I kind of like to, whenever I auto-generate some code, I go ahead and do a check-in, right? So placeholder routes, that's a fine message. Cool, so let's go ahead and start looking at implementing a little bit more. And the thing I'm going to start with is that toolbar that kind of has a couple things in it. So right now it just says password keeper, and that's fine. But what I want to do is I want to have a span, which kind of takes up most of the space in the middle. and then I want a dot 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 button. And for the time being, I'm going to make it always show up. This dot 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 button is an icon button. So there's a special class at Angular Material 2 called MD icon button. I could take you to the docs. I mean, I'll just kind of glance at it, and you could, use your little bookmark and go into components, and you could learn about buttons. So you'd have to scroll down to buttons, and you can see that there's different attributes like button or raise button or icon button, and you can see where I get these things. And the work that you do with me, I'm going to largely tell you, what we need. But whenever you're doing work for your own projects and things, you're definitely going to have to look up more than what I just tell you. So it's an icon button, and so we're going to need an MD icon. So we'll just say MD icon. Now we need to know the name of the MD icon. So to get the name of the MD icon, I should really save a reference to where I can get my names of my icons. But it's material.io/icons is where you can see the names of these icons. And you can go searching through here, but what I really want is kind of like a hamburger looking thing, or 3 dots. So it's almost right. That's almost right. I think it's called more vert. So I could probably also search for it. So more vert is the one I want. So I type more, and then you type underscore vert. And so with this, what should happen is I should be able to see a dot 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 right over here, and I should be able to click it like a button. And you can see that the span took up the space in the middle. So making good progress here. Now what I want this button to do is I want it to open a menu for me. So just like last time, it was a trigger which opened a menu. So let's go ahead and set some of that up. And sometimes it is easier to copy paste things. So you might want to go to components, and you might want to go to menu, and just kind of look at some of the code in here. And it's sometimes faster just to copy things and then modify them, right? So this is their button. So they had a button like this, and they had this thing right here. So this is a attribute MD menu trigger for. And so it's some type of menu. I'm just going to go ahead and call it my sign out menu, just for giggles. And so then this guy right here, where it says menu, is my sign out menu. And you can see that right now it's got an option 1 and an option 2. That's actually more complex than I need. And what I want to do is I just want a single thing that says sign out. And then my personal style preference is that I don't like for it to overlap the trigger. So I have to put an overlap trigger attribute in here and set it to false. Cool. So if that works, I should be able to click on this button and it says sign out. When I click it, not really anything happens, but it's looking pretty good, right? So it's looking like something. Whenever I click it, I want something to happen. So I'm going to say click. And I'm going to call some function. So I'm going to make up my own function name. Why not call it sign out? And so sign out needs to exist over in the TypeScript. So the only thing that's in here right now is title, which I don't need. So sign out is a function which returns void. And all I want sign out to do for the moment is I want it to do a console log and say to do. Sign out the user. So what I like to do is I like to do a save all, which on a Mac is Option Command S. And what I should be doing over here is I should be inspecting. And now whenever I click this sign out, it should say to do sign out the user. So something didn't work right. So I'm just going to make sure things are saved. Come back over here. And now it's working fine. So I think I just hadn't saved the file or something weird happened. But you can see it's saying to do sign out the user. The other thing I want to do, and then I'll maybe wrap up this video, is sometimes I want to show this button and sometimes I don't. So if you look at the solution, you can see that it doesn't show it right here. So it doesn't show it if you're not signed in. So like once you sign in, then you get the button, right? But if you're not signed in, so even if you were to go back to the sign in page manually, so it shows it only if you're signed in. So it doesn't matter which page you're on, it just shows it only if you're signed in. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of like prepare for this, right? Because all we're doing right now is we're preparing HTML. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to call it show sign out, and I'm going to set it to either true or false. So right now I'm going to set it to false. Now obviously I made the variable, I set it to false, but it's still showing it. So I'm going to have to go into my HTML, and I'm going to have to hide the trigger. It's kind of interesting that the thing you have to hide is the trigger. And if the trigger's not shown, then who cares about the menu, right? So what I want to do in here is I want to add an ngIf. There's a shortcut for that. You type a-ngIf. And we want to show it if show sign out is true, right? So show it only if it's true. Right now it's false, so you can see it's gone. But if I change it to true, then as soon as it reloads, it's back. So we've just got this variable for show sign out, and we've got it set to true or false. And it doesn't really matter what you leave it set to for now, because we're going to really change it depending on whether we're signed in or not. And so we're just preparing, and then once we're ready to do real authentication, the HTML will be ready to go. All right, I think that's a good stopping point for this video. Really, we just did toolbar stuff. So we're kind of got the toolbar ready to go with its little more vert, and then its menu that hops down. And then in here we have a function, which is ready to do sign out, and a variable which will keep track of whether we should show it or not. So this is just preparing the toolbar HTML. And I think to keep the videos kind of compartmentalized, we'll go ahead and finish this video here, and we'll come back next time when we start doing more with the content part of this app. All right, we'll see you then. Bye.